Now, it's the International Court of Justice, the top court of the United Nations, has ordered Russia to immediately suspend its military operations in Ukraine. So what does this decision mean and what happens next? Ademola Abbas, a professor of international law, global security expert, and former special advisor on overseas affairs and investment Lagos State, joins me to dissect this ruling. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now.
Thank you very much for having me.
So what effect do you think this ruling from the ICJ will definitely have on Russian president? He's obstinate and a lot of sanctions have actually been named, but it doesn't seem to be backing down.
Well, you're actually right. Let's look at it from two ways.
Right.
The ICJ, the International Court of Justice, by virtue of Article 92 of the UN Charter, is the principal judicial organ of the UN,
right,
which means whatever decision it gives binds all member states.
Right.
So there's no question about the legal validity of a judgment of the ICJ.
Right.
That is on the one hand. But the next thing is, what if a member state refuses to comply with its judgment?
Absolutely.
Which is your question. The ICJ has no independent means of enforcement. So it goes back to the most pivotal political organ of the UN,
right,
which is the Security Council,
right,
to enforce the decisions of the court. If
right,
non-compliance might imperil international peace and security. Whenever it comes to Security Council, then you're talking about 50 member states, 10 non-permanent members, 5 permanent members, including Russia. So you are not going to expect Russia to sit in Security Council that is going to enforce the ICJ judgment against itself.
And it has a veto power.
Of course, it will veto it. No question about that. That is, I'm talking about the legal and the political side. But in terms of the moral force of the decision, that is, it puts Russia in a very bad light. If you look at the judgment, only 2 judges dissented, and that is, one of the Russian judge and the judge from China. So the question is, it has a lot of weight, no question about it. It has a legal binding force, under international law. But is it going to be enforced against, Russia? The answer is absolutely not.
Well, on Wednesday, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, Karim Khan, met with President Zelensky in a surprise meeting. And then we know that ICJ can hold states responsible, just like you said, but the ICC could prosecute individuals, and with Joe Biden calling Russian president war criminal. So the question then is Vladimir Putin, is it possible, or can Vladimir Putin be prosecuted as a person?
Well, that's a huge question. It's an individual, so
right,
theoretically it could be prosecuted. But then you have a barrage of discussion under international law about immunity, whether immunity affords serving political officers like heads of state to be brought before International Criminal Court or international justice for that matter. That's a different discussion altogether. But again, don't forget, the International Criminal Court, yes, can prosecute individuals, but however, there is a relationship between the ICC again and the Security Council. So it comes to, how do you want to issue a subpoena against Putin? Is it going to respect? What if he doesn't respect it? And we don't expect him, should ICC issue any warrant against him, we don't expect him to respect that. Who is going to enforce such warrant? Security Council? Again, it comes back to the same thing that we face in ICJ. Now, I'm not saying that international criminal justice, whether by ICJ against states or by ICC against is useless. It's not useless. But the question is, there is an umbilical cord that binds those 2 courts with the pivotal organ of the security United States nation, which is the Security Council. The Security Council has a pivotal role to play, and that is going to eventually decide how the judgment is going to be respected.
Well, I read a little earlier about the city mayor saying that about 1,001 and 1,200 people may have been killed inside the theater which was bombed overnight. So the number of casualties actually not known, but if they say a place houses people as much as 1,200, what exactly is Putin driving at? What is his end game at the end of the day?
That's a very important question, because I think on the one hand, you can see Putin is getting more and more desperate. The kind of anticipation he had, the kind of projection he had in terms of probably just tumbling down to Kyiv and other major cities has not really panned out. Hasn't go to plan, simply because of the resistance the Russian forces have met,
absolutely,
from Ukraine, which they never expected in any way. So it's become more and more desperate. Also, that tells you that the economic sanctions are beginning to bite a lot. So the world should not expect Putin at this stage to back down. It's not going to back down. It's going to double down on attack on civilians, because that is what is going to, I think something tells me Putin is trying to force NATO to enter that war. for some reason. And of course, Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has been calling on NATO to close the air, that is, to create a no-flight zone, which NATO is not going to do. I think the game changer will be how far will NATO member states be willing to go in protecting Ukraine. On the one hand, we know NATO cannot allow itself to sleepwalk into a confrontation with Russia.
Absolutely.
And these are nuclear powers. Let's make no mistake.
Right.
But on the other hand, how long can the world allow one human being to take the entirety of the world to ransom just because it's threatening to use nuclear weapons? I think we have to find a balance somewhere along the line.
Absolutely, that's the question. That's the question on most everyone who is observing this particular war. That's the question on their lips. Well, thank you very kindly, Professor of International Law, Global Security Expert, and former Special Advisor on Overseas Affairs and Investment, Lagos State, Professor Ademola Abbas. Thank you very kindly.
My pleasure. Thank you.